All right, so good morning to those that are able to join live and for those that are joining on replay. We are coming together this morning because both Trina and myself have been on a a journey of healing, and we've been addressing both similar but different types of symptoms and things that we were healing through personally. Trina and I actually met quite a few years ago, and back in the day when we first met, we were definitely not on this journey. We were on a much different journey. And then our paths kind of went separate ways for a little while. And then around in 2019, I got pregnant and began a deeper healing journey. I started my healing journey in 2016 because I was diagnosed with endometriosis, adenomyosis, fibroids, inflammation, some mental health problems, and some other things as well at the age of 21. And I didn't really do much with that at 21. I was kind of just treating the symptoms. I was going to doctors, just getting the pills, whatever they would give me that would just keep me going on lottie-dottying with my life and not having to address my health. And so in 2016, it was starting to get worse. So it was getting to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was affecting my everyday life. I was severely depressed. My mental health was really, really bad. And I was having to, leave work because I was in so much pain. There was just a lot of stuff happening. So I started doing a lot of research on how I could start to heal what I had going on because no doctor was able to help me. And I really didn't do much at that point other than I was just really starting to eliminate all toxins from my home. So getting rid of, toxic cleaning products and things of that nature. And then in 2019, I got pregnant, which I didn't think I was going to be able to get pregnant because of what the doctors were telling me and having it be something in my womb. And so I then began to go through that spiritual awakening when I got pregnant because I wasn't able to numb myself with drugs or alcohol anymore. I had to really kind of just face the music, and all of a sudden COVID hit. So I was doing everything alone. I had zero help, and I was going through what for me at the time felt like the hardest thing of my entire life. But what it did is it put me so dark down deep into the shadows that I had no choice but to face it. And so I went through like a really, really massive, really fast spiritual awakening, which awoke me into the um, abilities that I knew that I always had, which were more so around like, psychic abilities, intuitive abilities, mediumship abilities, being able to feel things and sense things more deeply than others that I always kind of thought was a curse. I thought there was something wrong with me. I was gaslit about it my whole life. People always, kind of like picked on me for being sensitive, even family. And, so I never really kind of addressed that, but I realized that it was actually my superpower. So I dove headfirst into, developing and realizing that in order to become more spiritual or to become more enlightened or to be able to access more of my gifts and abilities, I needed to heal. And I realized that I actually was up against what felt like an unbearable mountain of healing at that point in time because I hadn't done any healing my entire life. So it was a journey of, yeah, just kind of working through my own healing, diving into holistic practices, diving into energy practices, which is how I started to get into becoming an energy healer and working through that myself. And so around the time when Trina and I met, I was, I think, a year or two into my practice already. And it was interesting, or not met, when we first kind of like came back, when we first started talking to each other again. It was funny because when she came to me, it was like this like deep inner knowing that at that moment in time, I knew I wasn't going to be able to like help her in the totality, the wholeness of what I wanted to, but that there was something that me and her were meant to do together and that we were kind of like meant to come back to each other for a bigger purpose. And that purpose, what we've kind of discovered over the last year is, well, number one, trying to, unwind the story of diabetes that she has been dealing with most of her life, pretty much all her life, but really just autoimmune in general. And so I will let Trina kind of just touch base now on her journey of healing and kind of how it all came to be and some of the things that she's experienced and, what her goals are with her own healing and what she wants to do for others. So I'll let you touch base on that now, Trina.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 9, and it always has been a big struggle with my health ever since I was a baby, pretty much. And I'm pretty sure that there was a lot of things that were not caught, which manifested that diabetes at age 9. And through the journey of my whole life, like no one's ever been able to get down to the nitty gritty things of, the root cause. And the root cause can be many different things. Um, so I unfortunately got COVID in 2021, I think it was.
Mm.
And that was terrible. It was a big struggle. Um, After that, I then also suffered a silent heart attack after having one of the boosters. And that was a big pivotal point for me of my awakening myself. Um, I was starting to question, why is the Western medical system only making me worse? Why is it giving me 100 more symptoms? Why am I taking so many more medications? Why is nothing improving? So then I started, finding other practitioners that could really help. And when I started like dabbling into functional health and holistic ways of living, that's when the needles started to really move on my healing journey. Um, and I think like the fundamentals of healing is coming back to nutrition. It's the most basic point of our healing journey because at the end of the day, like food is medicine.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I would say that was before even the energy, that was where I started too. I realized that no doctor was able to help me. They just kept giving me medications and pills that was notably making everything worse in my body and in my mind. And I realized that I had to reduce the inflammation in my body because my whole life I had just been eating and consuming products and foods and everything that was completely chemical based. Or if not chemical based, it was causing acidity in my body. And it was just, increasing that inflammation and, speeding up whatever may have already been kind of a muck. And so, it kind of sounds like the same thing there for you, Trina, where it was just like, there was something off as a baby and it just kind of progressed really fast.
And that's the trouble with autoimmune disease as well. Like it's kind of like Pokemon. You've got to like catch them all, and they
Mhm.
start catching up with you at such a tremendous rate, and everything starts exponentially like snowballing at that point.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that could be part of the reason why, yeah, we do see such a increase of autoimmune and, mental health or different disorders or cancers or, right? It's like the children, as children, like we're being born with mothers that were pumped full of chemicals when they were pregnant with us, eating, medicines, all sorts of different things, right? And then we're born and then we just receive more chemicals. And then, it's like chemicals on top of chemicals to treat chemicals. And then on the other half of the spectrum, we have the energetic and spiritual side of things where, all the generations before us have undergone mass amounts of trauma in one way or another. And trauma has been linked, especially because it causes stress, to change our DNA. And when it's changing the DNA, it's changing the genetic coding of, what we're supposed to be experiencing. And it's like the degradation of the DNA within the being, right? And so if there wasn't a genetic disorder or disease before, there might be now, because whatever was unhealed within your mother or your father or your grandparents or so on and so forth never got healed, never got looked at, and they just passed it down to you. And so we're having to navigate this healing journey as a multi-layered sort of thing. And when we come down to, like Trina said, the most basic thing, it comes down to just like really educating ourselves on what are we putting into our bodies? What is the food that we're putting into our bodies? What is inside of the food, right? What is inside these the products, the makeup, the hair products, the house cleaning products, whatever, all of it, right? What's in our water, right? Like, are we asking these questions? Are we looking at all these things? I think most of us just go, oh, well, the CDC says that we're allowed to have a little bit of aluminum, so it's okay. But like, when it's your whole life, it's not a little bit anymore, right? You're taking in a small amount every day, all day, every day for however many years, right? And then all of a sudden it catches up with you. And so now we see this big increase of Alzheimer's and things going on with, chronic fatigue and autism and things like learning disorders, ADHD, right? And if we really kind of like think about like, okay, the brain, the mind, like what's going on there, right? And we know that heavy metals like to sit in there. And if we're consuming all these heavy metals in our food and our water, in the air we breathe, and they're just settling into there, right? From the time that you're born, even before you're born, probably, right? Coming from your mother, then you're not really getting a really good head start at life, right? And so I know for Trina and myself, one of the biggest things that we're always focusing on is detoxing. So maybe just kind of share a little bit about your detoxing journey.
Yeah, like I said, I started working with a functional medicine doctor, and the first point, obviously, where you look at is what you're consuming, eliminating things from your diet so they're the most wholest form of food, so your body can actively recover as well.
Mm.
That's the first major point. But the second major point for detoxing and um, recovering from this is starting at your gut. The standard diet is not conducive to us in having a healthy gut. There's things like gluten that actively rip out, your villi and disrupt that from keeping those junctions like tightly formed.
Mm.
There's also things like um, prescription drugs and alcohol and stress that can also disrupt, your gut lining. It can just rip it to shreds.
Yes.
So, starting your journey and looking at, active gut repair, we probably all have leaky gut in one form or another. It's just what stage is that gut damaged?
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about like leaky gut?
Yeah. Um, so in your gut lining, there are junctions. It's villi, and they should be like closed like this. So when your gut becomes damaged, the villi kind of like open up and allow toxins and parasites and um, things like food pathogens to then enter your bloodstream. And then once these kind of things enter your bloodstream, they really let all those issues snowball into bigger things. Once you've got that leaky gut, then you'll really have a strong disposition to autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And kind of ties into, yeah, I mean, I guess really everything, right? It's just like if everything's kind of coming through our body, either through contact of like us touching something with our hands, putting it in our mouth, breathing it in, or maybe getting a cut, or through, sexual intercourse, I suppose too. That's another way. But um, yeah, it's going into that gut, and viruses such as Epstein-Barr also kind of play into that, and that's been something we've both been diving into and learning about. I will speak more on like the spiritual and energetic perspective of viruses and how we can completely eliminate that by healing, but from a like energy healing, but from like a more I guess like physical perspective, like with the diet. Do you know if there's like something in terms of like getting that under control?
Like with the leaky gut.
Yeah, and like so yeah, like leaky gut and Epstein-Barr.
Mm, I think like the connection is like definitely parasites with that,
Mhm.
but which parasite I'm still trying to like decipher what that is. Because with Epstein Barr, I feel like it's kind of like not just parasitic, but like a GI um, issue as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so either way, it's kind of all starting in that gut, and that brings us to the other thing too, where it's like when we're eating foods, whether it be, salmon, fish, whatever, right, or even vegetables, most of the time we're not cleaning our food properly.
Absolutely. And I want to just kind of like backtrack a little bit from the whole cleaning thing. And like in today's world, we also have to think about like pesticides as well. But,
Mm,
you know, um, financial topics can really impact how, like, where we can spend our money to be able to heal.
mhm,
And I think that something that you have to consider as an individual is that topic as well, because first of all, at the end of the day, like sometimes organic doesn't mean organic, right?
yeah.
And then you also have different things to look at where different types of fruit and vegetables, depending on their skin thickness, are going to be less likely to have so many pesticides able to penetrate that skin as well.
Mm, mhm,
So,
mhm,
what I really like to keep in mind when I go produce shopping is a list called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen.
mm,
So, there's certain things that have to absolutely be organic, like berries. Their skin is so thin and they
mm.
use a crazy amount of pesticides. Like, there was a study where they were able to mash down the strawberries and spray the crops with that juice.
Yeah, that's right. I did see that.
Is insane. So
Yeah.
that's something that you're going to have to decide on for an individual, like where you're going to go through with that process as well.
Yeah, it's like not even worth it at this point to even consider buying non-organic berries, even though I know that organic berries aren't 100% organic either. But the point is that we're trying to cut back on the pesticides as much as we possibly can.
But then the cleaning is so different too. And things like berries, where they have like a much thinner skin, something like just baking soda would be best to clean that. And
Mm,
things with a thicker skin, like say carrots or apples, would just be good to be soaked in, like say vinegar.
right.
And I understand that people are mixing the baking soda and the vinegar together, but then it's kind of defeating the whole purpose of that
Mm,
chemical makeup to be able to remove those kinds of pesticides.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like we have to, educate ourselves on the different pesticides and how to properly get those off. I know that I had a friend a little while back send me this like product that was like a little device, like a frequency device that you like stick into your bowl of like whatever veggies or fruits that you're trying to clean. I never ended up buying it yet. I don't know why. I guess I'm just like not totally sure if that's a viable, you know,
Yeah.
option or not, but it looks like it could be.
Yeah, I definitely seen those, and I think they're like quite popular in like the Asian countries.
Mhm.
So there's definitely, I think, something to that. It's just finding a device where it's legitimate is
I
the issue.
know. I know. And it's like, how do we test? Like, you don't know unless you can like test your fruit after to be like, oh, how much did it take off? Right. And I guess that's even if you're going to soak it too. You really don't know. You're just kind of shooting in the dark and hoping for the best. But I mean, there is some other things that we can do that I like to do in terms of alchemy and transmutation. And so if we kind of just dive into like the metaphysical world here for a moment, um, there's nothing on this planet that's unhealable or unfixable in terms of energy because you can always change energy. And even just the food you eat is energy. Even if it has a low energy with chemicals and stuff on it, that you can still change the composition of that, the molecular structure, if you will. And this can be a really tough one for most people to wrap their heads around because yeah, there is some scientific evidence of this in terms of like certain studies that have been done with water by Masaru Emoto. He was a doctor from Japan that did some studies on the molecular structure of water and the difference of when you are, infusing that water with love and gratitude and peace and beautiful classical music, or if you're like yelling at it and there's heavy metal playing and, swear words and whatever, right? The molecular structure is either looking absolutely like a destroyed cancer cell, it's very similar, or it looks like a beautiful crystalline structure. And so, because everything that is alive has water in it, and we are basically just a big water bubble, the fruit is just water, everything's just water, we can change that molecular structure. And so, if you want, you can make it as simple as just placing your hands over top of your food. I like to just kind of warm things up a little bit and then put my hands over top of my food. And our visualization is one of the strongest tools that we have. And it's the thing that we've been lied to about the most. Why? Because as soon as you're a child, they tell you that it's just your imagination. That's just what children do. What we don't realize as adults is that children are actually co creating the beauty in this world because they come in with just that, and imagination is what creates reality. So as soon as you stop believing in things that are apparently to us, right, unimaginable, then it'll never be imaginable, right? Because you don't believe it. So our mind is our most powerful freaking tool that we have been lied to about, that it's just this like brain that only accesses so much and it's just kind of there, and there's like certain strands of DNA that are just junk, like as if the human body was created with pieces of us that are junk, like this is where we have to start advocating for ourselves and like questioning things a little bit more and being like, is that actually true? And so, from a metaphysical level, for perspective, right? What I teach my students and what I do for everything in my life is I just imagine that of the highest vibrational source of light, which is gold. So gold is like on a scale, if you were to look at a scale, and I'm actually going to share a presentation in a moment to kind of help this land for everybody with what Trina and I are talking about. I made it a while back, but it's called Raise Your Vibration. And essentially, even what Trina's talking about with the diet and all that, we need to raise the vibration on multiple levels, because when we vibrate at a low frequency with the foods that we're eating, from the music we're listening to, the people we surround ourselves with, whatever it is, right? It's lowering the megahertz, which is us, because we are just energy, frequency, and vibration. That's all we are. We look physical, but we're not actually physical. I know that can be hard to wrap your head around, but that's just what it is. And this has been proven. So, physicists, if you go into more quantum physicists, they understand these concepts, but you don't find it in the mainstream. Nobody's really talking about that. We're getting there, right? More and more people are talking about that, but it's still a bit of a out there kind of concept for a lot of people to be able to kind of wrap their head around. So As we grow into that perspective, we understand that we are vibrating at a certain megahertz, and whatever we put into our body is a specific megahertz. And you're either raising the vibration or you're lowering the vibration. When we start to experience things like colds, autoimmune, cancers, death, that's when we know your megahertz is lowering and lowering and lowering, and you will get warning signs because your body will get a flu, it'll get a cold, it'll get arthritis, it'll get inflammation, right? It'll start to give you those warning signs of like, hey, you need to back up, right? We need to go back up. We need to bring things up a notch again. But instead we take medication, and that medication has a dead vibration. There's no megahertz inside of that. So what does it do? It lowers your vibration even more. So then your body's working even harder, and then your organs start to, okay, we got to like work on overdrive, and then now they're all under strain, right? And your whole body's under stress, and then eventually, now we're seeing this huge uptick and increase of people with cancers at young ages. Why? Because people are like, from the time that they're born, they're taught to be fearful about certain things. They're taught to be powerless about their own healing. They're taught the opposite of what is, in my perspective, and I'm sure Trina can agree, the actual truth about what our food is, which it is our medicine, and that we do have the ability to heal ourselves through our thought alone. Really, just your thought, right? If you have such a mastery over your own mind, you can reverse just about anything. And I would say for me, that was pretty much how I managed to reverse all my disease, because I was making huge progress with my diet, right? I was getting things to a manageable level where it wasn't like really like hugely affecting my life anymore, but it was still there, and I could feel that the disease was still there. And so this is when my spiritual awakening really kind of like kicked it up a notch, and I realized that I had to actually believe that I could heal. But I still had a lot of old programming somewhere in my mind that was telling me that it wasn't going to happen. And so because I believed that on a subconscious level, again, it wasn't conscious, it was a very subconscious level, I wasn't healing. So when I started to use the power of my mind to clear out all of my blocks around healing, started to clear out all of my trauma energetically. Okay, so in my womb, I had trauma from what I have experienced in this lifetime. Okay, I also had all my mom's trauma, and then all the women before her, everything in my womb. So I could not heal because I was literally just looking at one angle of it. And so when Trina and I have come together, what we're trying to do is see the whole broader aspect of like the multi-layeredness of healing, which is diet, which is your mind, your thoughts, right? Your emotions. And it is the energetic aspect all together, because we are multidimensional beings, meaning that we reside and we access multiple dimensions of information. Some dimensions of information store the emotions, some of them store the water, some of them store our thoughts, right? There's multiple layers to it. So if you're just getting one layer, you're missing the whole spectrum. So we've been working really hard to try and like put these puzzle pieces together. And I know that we both feel like we're getting really close, but there's still more that we're trying to piece together here. So I'm just going to go ahead and um, also share my little PowerPoint that I just kind of wanted to talk about, that will show you kind of the megahertz of like, what Trina was talking about, like when you're eating fruits and veggies, and why that's so important from an energetic perspective. So you can help that. So that helps to land it for you in case you're not quite understanding the energy perspective of it all, because I think from a holistic point of view, or from like a common sense point of view, it's like it makes sense that we can't be putting poison on our food and then putting that into our body and expecting that our body is going to heal, right? It has to work overtime. It has to work a little bit harder in order to do what it needs to do, but it's not unobtainable. So before I share that, because I have a really bad habit of, my mind just takes me on these journeys when I'm talking, when I have some food that might have chemicals in it, if I can't rinse it properly, I just place my hand on top of it and I visualize gold, because again, gold is the highest vibration. And I just like imagine it coming through my top of my head into that arm, down into my hand, and we shape energy through our intentions. So my intention when I'm shaping the energy from one, this is alchemy, right? One source to another, is to transmute and clear and release all toxins, all poisons, all bad intentions, or anything else like attached to it that might actually make my body sick. So I just let that light just flow through my hand as I'm stating my intention. And then I'm just like infusing it with love, perfect health, infusing it with, gratitude for the energy of that food that I'm about to eat, right? Like, thank you for your life, because anything that you eat, whether it's an animal or a plant, has a consciousness. This has already been proven through science that if we talk to plants, it thrives, right? There's enough studies on that already. And so if you're about to eat your piece of vegetable or your fruit or whatever, it does have an impact on your body if you change the molecular structure by speaking gratitude and thanks to before you consume it. If we go back to the earliest days of like when we would see Christianity come about where they would bless their food, that was for a reason. They're blessing their food so that way they can have it fully nourish their body and give gratitude back to whatever you're taking from the earth. And I think that's part of the reason why we've come so sick, because we've forgotten our connection to the earth. We've forgotten our connection to the plants, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the fruits, all the things, right? The minerals. And we just think that it just kind of just like it's no big deal to just take it, but it is, right? It has a consciousness. It's feeding us. And when we provide love and gratitude back to what we're taking, you inevitably manifest more of that into your own reality, right? Things become easier. Your body starts to go, oh, okay. So everything starts to go back into that balanced state. So hopefully that makes sense. Is there anything you want to add on that? I feel like there's something you have to add.
Not from really an energetic perspective, but
Mhm.
I think maybe also managing and kind of mitigating any pesticides that we do ingest, and like how sometimes maybe we're just so busy in everyday life that we're not able to alchemize everything
Yeah.
because life is crazy.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think that a really useful tool in everyone's life is something called zeolite kryptonite.
Mhm.
And that is a mineral that comes from volcanic ash. And you can use that to like take away any heavy metals, any mold, candida, pesticides.
Mhm.
Um, it's a binder, so that will help your body to really just sweep all of that stuff out and like get that out of your body. You know, keeping a house clean.
Yes. Yeah. Without disturbing the rest of the house. Like say activated charcoal might, it keeps things doesn't it keep like the good micro gut biomes?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really a Swiss Army knife of
Yeah.
everything. It's so good for like gut health. It also crosses the blood-brain barrier. It is just like the best thing that I have been taken for almost a year, I think now.
Yes. Absolutely. It's something that you got me onto, and I was taking in another form. Um, if anybody is interested, then we can definitely add those links for like some of the things that we use. Um, Afterwards, I tried another company before. It was quite expensive, and I think I'm now going to switch to like your route where it's not just a small tincture, it's like a big bucket of zeolite for the same price as what you'd pay for this like little tincture of it. That does not last nearly as long. Maybe not like the best taste in the world, but listen, we're all adults here, right? There's certain things you got to just like kind of get over as you are trying to heal, and just realize that your inner child's probably putting up a little bit of a hissy fit because it maybe somewhere deep down you don't want to heal. That's another thing that we come up against, because healing takes work and it can be really challenging, and it can really challenge your ego. And if you are really addicted to your pain and suffering, which is a thing, okay, our emotions are literally like a drug. We have to rehabilitate ourselves from the things we get addicted to, way beyond just the food, the external things. we get addicted to our own pain and suffering because for most, that's all you've ever known. And so to not be like that can actually be quite terrifying. And so if that's you and you feel that way, then and I'm sure Trina agrees, we totally understand that feeling. And that's why it can be helpful to work with somebody, maybe like Trina or myself, where we can help to, hold you accountable, but also just hold that space for you, and provide that compassion and just like that motivation to be like, what's really behind your non-willingness to want to heal right now? Like, why do you feel resistant and why are you making excuses? Because we all do it. I know that I've done it. At the end of the day, it is an excuse, right? Oh, it doesn't taste good. Oh, I'm too busy, right? But is that actually true? I feel that we're all busy, but we can all make time for ourselves. And maybe you're not making time for yourself because you're so busy trying to please other people. And that's another addiction in itself. So the addictions are a big part of it all.
But like not just the addictions, right? The worthiness and accepting that you are worthy to
Yeah.
live this healthy life and function like a regular person.
Yeah. So there's a lot of limiting beliefs. There's a lot of programming that comes into actually healing. And when I see individuals that continue to cycle through the same stuff and they can't seem to heal things, I always come back to the mindset. I'm like, what do you truly believe or what is blocking you? And this can be difficult for us to see for ourselves because usually it's in our blind spot and we're like, well, I don't know, right? If you do have a really deep sense of self-awareness where you do spend time every day connecting with your body and your soul and asking yourself questions, right? Being aware of how you feel, then being able to identify those limiting beliefs can get a lot easier and will be, quite more manageable. But if you're kind of just like at the beginning of this journey and you're not really used to doing that, then again, you might need a little bit of help, and that's okay too.
Yeah, it's a lot and it can be extremely overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have to take breaks from healing, I find.
Definitely.
Yeah. I do it all the time. Like I recently from like about I'd say November to now, I've just been focusing on healing and it was really heavy. So I'm always happy to do it in the middle of the winter because I'm like, listen, there's not much more going on anyways. Um but now I feel myself kind of like coming out of that like dark cave that I just went through to just get through what I needed to get through. And I'm like, oh, I need a break. Like I need to just go like live my life a little bit. I need to like have a little fun and like bring some more joy back into my life and not just be in the depths of like the heaviness. But um, if you do have a lot of really deep stuff going on, it may, take a little bit more work, and that's okay too.
And I just want to maybe touch on seasons as well, because we're supposed to live like in sync with seasons. So winter, we're supposed to be resting and maybe reflecting. Then springtime is really made for detoxing and releasing.
Mm, hmm. Isn't that the truth? I think we all feel that in the springtime where we're just like, okay, let's go. I'm over. I know I get that way. I'm just like, you know what? It's summertime. I'll come back to it in the fall. um, so, okay, with that, I wanted to just share a little bit about this presentation that I made a while back that I think could really help land the energetic aspect of it all. Because when I first started learning about this changed the game for me when I was healing. It took a lot of the guessing out of it. And oh gosh, there we go. And it really kind of just helped me understand how everything we think, everything we feel, everything we eat, it all has an energy. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but it is something that we need to be aware of. So, um, your vibration. So your vibration again is like the emanation of you, right? When you come up against somebody, people pick up on your vibe, right? They're like, "Oh, that person's really nice," or "That person seems like they're having a really bad day," or "There's something deeper going on there," right? Like as human beings, we always see with our first eye. Your first eye is your heart. I find in the spiritual community we get so obsessed with trying to open our third eye, but we forget we're already reading information with our heart all the time. And so when we when we're struggling with a low vibration, okay, people do pick up on that, right? And they say that thing of like your vibe attracts your tribe. Well, I know when I was in my low vibration, I actually had a lot of friends around me that were also in that vibration, who made unhealthy life choices, were also struggling with addictions, were living unhealthy lifestyles, bad eating habits, negative mindsets. Like it was exactly a reflection of me at that point. And so, as I've raised my vibration really high, the reflection of the people in my life now are all also that too. They're on the same path. They are positive, good-hearted, type of people, and it's because of the healing that I've done energetically. So I found that the more that I healed things energetically, my physical health just naturally just healed itself. Because at the end of the day, even your physical health problems, everything, it's all just energy, right? So, um, I'll kind of just move along here. You'll know you're in a low vibration if this resonates for you because you will be suffering from things like mental health issues. You may have physical dis-ease. We call it dis-ease because it's just you know, disease is such a harsh label. And when it's just the dis-ease of something in your body, maybe it's an organ, maybe it's your endocrine system, maybe it's your whatever, another system, right? We can always put things back into ease and out of the dis, right? So if you struggle from addiction issues, experiencing setbacks, or repeated negative or limiting patterns and habits, unhealthy friendships or relationships, you find happy people annoying. I used to be that person. I found happy people annoying. You feel lost in life. You're impatient. You complain a lot. You don't think you're good at anything. You're holding on to the past. You're judging others, constantly losing friends or having issues with friends or even family members, right? This could be all indications that your vibration is low. And again, I don't say this in any sort of negative connotation at all. Don't take it like that. It's just that that's how things work. There's a scale of high and there's a scale of low. You're either like, you're going to be somewhere in between the lowest part of the scale or the highest part of the scale, right? So we can kind of see that scale here. So when somebody is really vibrating at a frequency, a really, really high vibe, this is why you might see people like gurus or really spiritual people that just seem like nothing bothers them. It's because it doesn't. Because when you're at an extremely high vibration, things can't stick to you. So what do I mean by that? Emotions are what cause dis-ease, right? It causes the dis-ease in the body because it sticks to you like a plague, right? So if there's all these lower vibrations vibrating at these lower ones that you see down here, and you're all the way at 700 plus, there's no resonance. So there's something called sympathetic resonance in energy world where if you have somewhere in your body the resonance of say 100 fear, right? Somewhere. And that fear is being held in your body through some sort of belief or some sort of trauma. Then if there's another energy outside of you, right, of that, it can literally come and stick to you, and it will now take whatever fear you had and it'll amplify it. This is why when I see people who watch a lot of serial killer shows, I always laugh because I feel like these people, from what I see from a psychic perspective, have a lot of deep seated fear. And so they're naturally being drawn to other things that feed that fear. And it's giving them like a false high. They kind of get off on it. They're just like, oh, I'm so exhilarated by this, right? But again, it's like that drug. Emotions are like a drug. So you got to be really careful, right? I now, because I vibrate really high, you will not catch me listening to music, watching TV shows, hanging around people that vibrate below probably like I would say neutrality. And if I do, I am feeling it. Like I feel it. I can pick up on their sickness, their disease. I can pick up on their mental health problems. A lot of the times, what you have in your body isn't even yours. This is something we also have to take into perspective. And sometimes it's coming from somebody outside you in your everyday life, or again, it might have come from somebody before you, your mom, an ancestor, who held all of these frequencies and they just passed it down to you. And now you're trying to figure out, well, I've got this issue here, I've got this health issue, I've got this, okay, we'll just use us as an example, endometriosis, diabetes, right? What's the energy behind this? What's the frequency? What is it sitting at? Is there all these emotions of anger, fear, grief, apathy, like whatever, right? Are any of those in there? And where did they come from? So when I'm working with clients, that's where I really dive more into those past life aspects of it all to see, like, let's read into this and see what your body is actually storing that's not yours. And then what is yours, we can start to work on that separately and kind of bring it all together. Okay. So having yourself in a really, 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 really high vibrational state, sickness, illness, and dis-ease cannot live in that kind of environment. We could also think of that as when somebody's in an alkaline environment in their body. If you're not healing, okay, say if you've done a shitload of healing, you're still suffering with your disease, this is where we have to ask one of two questions. Number one, is this written in my blueprint? If it's written in your blueprint to experience this and to potentially pass away from this, I'm not trying to be negative here, but if that is the case and it's written in your soul's blueprint, then you won't be able to clear it unless your soul says so. Okay. If this is something that you have embodied through your own doing of what you've experienced in this lifetime, or it's something that's been passed through the DNA line from your ancestors, it is 100% curable. And that is just, I know that's a bold statement, but that is literally how I see everything. I see that everything is curable. We just got to get to the root cause and clear. It's like unwinding. It's like whenever I see like a disease in somebody, it's like there's like this ball of energy and there's like all these ties and winds. And in each string that's binding it together, there's a story. And that story holds emotions, and those emotions are storing a lower vibration that's holding it in place. So we literally have to like unwind it, pull the pieces apart until it can transform and turn into something else. And that's that transmutation. And that transmutation will then release it, and their body will naturally go back into homeostasis, which is just balance itself, because it knows how to do that. But it can't do that when it has all these stuck emotions causing from different wounds and traumas and stories. And those stories come from your mind. So again, we have to make sure we're looking at our mental health, our emotional health, energetic health, and then the physical aspect of it all. All of it ties together. So that's how I managed to clear my disease. And it took a little bit of work. Now, if we just, I'll do one more thing here just in terms of like the diseased body. So the frequency of your body, all your organs, they all have a certain megahertz. So MHZ stands for megahertz. Okay. The human body vibrates usually at a range of 62 to 78 hertz. Now, if you are putting in foods, I might have put something on here about it, that are vibrating lower than that, okay, then this is where you're going to start to see the vibration of the normal human body start to lower, right? So here it says colds and flus start at 57 to 60 megahertz, meaning you've dropped your megahertz because you're putting something in your body that's lowering the megahertz. And if you're not putting something in your body that's lowering it, you're harnessing or holding trauma, emotions, stories that are, again, on that consciousness scale that are lower, that are lowering the megahertz of your body. Okay, so disease, whoopsies, starts at 58 megahertz. Okay, candida overgrowth, 55, receptive to Epstein-Barr, 52 megahertz, receptive to cancer, 42, and death begins at 25 megahertz. So if we go down here and we look at, hopefully, whoopsies. Oh my gosh. You can see this here, but the foods and herbs. So fresh foods, okay, will vibrate from 20 to 27, fresh herbs. If you go down to dried foods, you can see that the hertz goes down, right? Processed and canned foods literally have 0 megahertz. So if you are eating meat and if you are eating processed foods, you're not really putting any live energy into your body to keep things running. Because again, you're just like this like well-greased machine that needs it needs a source of energy to keep things running. So if the source of energy you're putting in is low or negative or dead, you're going to be an exact reflection of that. Right? Makes sense. So just to kind of land this last one here, we won't focus too much on any of this stuff, but just look at superfoods, right? Okay. Superfoods like wheatgrass, phytoplankton, chlorophyll, essential oils vibrate from 52 to 320 megahertz. Imagine what that's doing for your body when you put that into your body, right? These megahertz are literally disintegrating naturally any of those lower vibrations that you have from chemicals and all those sort of things. It's, like every morning I follow the medical medium detox smoothie and I put barley grass, I put dulse kelp, I believe it's called. I put wild non-cultivated blueberries. I put algae, like other algae, spirulina, a few other things. There's a few other things that I put in there, but they're all superfoods. And so I start my day with that, with a glass of hot water with some lemon. And then I eat my superfood. Oh yeah, and cilantro, because cilantro is really good for pulling out those heavy metals. So I do all that to just give me like a good clean flush, and I literally feel freaking amazing all day until I do decide to eat something with carbs, and then I'm like, oh, I'm ready for a nap. But anyways, so you can see as we go down the scale here, I won't name them all off, but you can see eggs, cheese, milk, cream, like all that, 0 megahertz, nothing. You're literally putting crap into your body. That's just going to make you sick. And as we go up the scale here, you can see how more of them are raising the megahertz. Our berries and our these foods contain high minerals. Yeah, so these foods from the trees, right? Goji berries, limes, lemons, spirulina, all those sort of things, right? So things to take into consideration. Also, if you're wanting to raise your vibration as well, you can listen to different sounds. So different megahertz of sound frequencies can remove pain, can influence your energy field, liberate you from fear and guilt, all those sorts of things, repair your DNA. That's always a really good one that I love to use. I've been playing these nonstop for the last 4 years. I just follow my intuitive guidance on what I feel I need right now. And how do I do that? I check in with myself. How do I feel right now? Do I feel sad? Do I feel scared? Do I feel lonely? How do I feel? Right? Write down how you feel. Once you know how you feel, then you can understand what kind of frequency you need to use to counteract that. Okay, that's my little spiel on that. Hopefully you like that. I'm sure there was lots of stuff that you already knew there, but yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to add on that?
No, I think we've covered a lot of our bases. There's some really good points from every different aspect that I think everyone can integrate into their daily life to really accelerate their healing.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, when it comes to the energy side of things, it's really important to really take a look at how your body is feeling. And this cultivation of creating a relationship with your body in your healing journey, I feel like should also be one of the first things that you start to do. Because what this will do, and I remember even like when Trina first came and seen me, like she had chronic fatigue. I mean, the girl couldn't even hold a conversation with me. She was just kind of there. And I was like, okay, let's just look at the energy, okay? And so when I looked into her energy field, what I seen was that she was plagued with energies that were not hers. She is an empath, so she's very sensitive, and she, didn't know anything about having to cleanse your energy or take a look at, how to protect that. And again, some people use the argument of that we don't need to protect ourselves because we just need to be in love. But I'm gonna, kind of counteract that with the conversation of that, yeah, that is true, but it's a journey to get there. You don't, yes, we're born as just love, but we lose that along the path, right? We forget that we can be that we can love ourselves and that we can just embody love and nothing will get stuck to us, right? No spirits, no energies, but it takes time to get there, which takes healing. And so for Trina, like she had this old man spirit in her aura that was just literally like a leech. It was just on there, just like siphoning her energy to keep him somewhat existing in the spiritual realm, I guess. I don't know. I call them the hungry ghosts. They're so desperate for frequency, okay, because they don't have that, especially the ones that may have died in such a way that wasn't very good, or maybe they did some not so great things in their lifetime, and so they're kind of stuck in that in between. They'll find they'll find you like a moth with a light bulb, man. They're gonna find you, and they're gonna see your light, and they're gonna just suck it away from you. And then if you do have any trauma, if you do have any, lower vibration emotions, they're also going to amplify that. They're going to really feed that. And this is why we see, in terms of like when I'm working on people that struggle with bipolar or mental health problems, they have a lot of entities in their field, and it's creating mental illness and mental problems. So when we remove that literal like succubus off of Trina's field, she was notably, able to notice a difference. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, like I was blown away. How can I go in before a session feeling that I was being physically dragged down to the floor? I was exhausted,
Mhm.
and walk out like fully relieved and feeling like a noticeable difference.
Yeah. And that just goes to show how like powerful and how important it is for us to have our spiritual or energy hygiene. Just as you keep your body clean, we've got to keep the energy clean, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to be some like super psychic person to do that. You just need to have a couple tools. And one of those tools that I like to use is just a very simple meditation. And so I will share that as well afterwards, as I have the video on YouTube. But another little trick that we can do just to be your own healer and to not overcomplicate it is to use your hands. So your hands are your greatest healer. To me, that's why I feel like they created cell phones, because they put them in there. The vibration of the radiation destroys the molecules, right, in your hands, and it creates distortions on your ability to heal yourself. So we have hand chakras, and your hand chakra is very powerful, especially if it's not being all bogged down by EMF and other toxins, right? So I like to just give my hands a little rub just to kind of like create that electrical charge. So another thing to understand too, as human beings, we are electrical. This is why we eat fruits and stuff, to electrify us, to amp us up, to give us energy, right? We need that electricity in our body. The electricity is really important, but we also have to remember, what do you do with electricity in your house? You ground it. We have to stay grounded. So if you're not grounded, you're going to have all this energy in your field, and you're going to feel really like, oh my God, like I'm stressed out. I'm thinking about all these things. You might have ADHD. You might be all over the place. You're like, right? It's because you need to ground. You need to bring it back down. You need to start working with your energy, and cultivate a non-stressful environment within your body and your mind. So I will, when I'm feeling some way, okay, say I'm like feeling really heavy, I'm feeling really sad, I just kind of ask my body, like, body, where are you holding this emotion right now? Usually I will know, because I'll get some sort of sensation. Maybe I'll feel like a twitch in my arm. Maybe I'll feel pain in my heart. Maybe I'll feel like a numbing or tingling in my left arm, which I have right now. I know I have something in my left shoulder blade that I'm trying to move out. And I just ask my hands. So I just imagine that golden white light coming down from the cosmos, coming through my head and into my hands. And then I just take my hands wherever that is. And I ask my hands to just work as like silly putty, or whatever the word is, right? Like some sort of sticky magnet, right? Just like a magnet. And I just put it there just for a moment. And I just ask that whatever emotions, okay, are in my heart right now, or making me feel uncomfortable, maybe it's the stress, right? To just be released into my hands. My hands are acting as this like vacuum that's sucking it out. And you may just get this intuitive feeling when you're done. Okay, just do it for as long as you feel you need to. Take some deep breaths. Don't overthink it. There's nothing you need to think about. The energy is very intelligent and knows exactly what it needs to do, and so does your body. If you just get out of our own, if we would just get out of our own way, right? Stop overthinking things so much, because the mind's always going to hit blocks every single time. The mind does not know how to think in a lateral way. It knows how to think linear. And when you're thinking linear, there's always a block. There's always going to be a block. But when you connect to your intuition, your body, and you just let it do what it needs to do, and don't try to think about it, because as soon as you try to think about it, you're controlling it. And as soon as you're controlling it, you're reversing the flow of what needs to be done. So we're just letting it flow into the hand, and you'll just get this sense of like, yeah, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Just take your hands and just kind of like wipe it out and just let it go. And that's that. It doesn't need to be complicated. It works really well. If you want to use more energy techniques, you can. I will share that meditation, but for those that are just getting started or want to just have it be really quick, say you're like just driving in your car and you just want to like stick your hand somewhere, you can do that too. Okay, so how are you feeling on our conversation?
Super good.
Yeah,
That was so good.
yeah, I feel that I feel like we pretty much covered most things. Again, when it comes to I feel like I need to touch on the mental perspective. When it comes to your mental mind, remember this, that your mental mind is either working for you or it's working against you. Your thoughts and your beliefs can either create healing or they can create sickness. And so you need to ask yourself, if you are sick right now, whatever it may be, it doesn't have to be something super extreme. You need to ask yourself, what is my mind telling me? How do I feel mentally? Do I feel mentally strong? Do I truly believe that I can get better? Do I suffer from stress? Am I feeling depressed? Am I plagued by the past, of the memories of the past? Am I stressing about the future? If that's you, then you don't have control over your mental mind, and that's not your fault, because we're not taught how to do that. This takes a lot of self inner work and reflection to cultivate that connection to your mind and to have it be a powerful tool instead of a negative tool. This is why in this world we are literally just fed all of these distractions: TV, music, whatever it may be, right? All these things that just distract your mind, and it programs your subconscious. And so a lot of it is fear based. If you watch scary movies or apocalyptic movies, or you watch serial killer shows, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'm not telling you what to do, but perhaps it might be time to stop watching those, because all it's doing is creating an unhealthy environment in your mental mind. And so some things that I like to do to create a really, really strong mental body, they call it mental mind, mental body, is I take a lot of time to create a high vibrational environment for myself. So I always have essential oils going. I have really high vibrational music. If I do watch a movie or a TV show, I'm like, what's the premise of this movie, right? Are they pushing fear? Or is this got a happy ending, right? Is it based around love? Is it based around unity? What is it, right? I also check myself, right? If I'm having negative thoughts, which I did this morning, I found myself arguing with somebody and I had to like stop for a second. I was like, whoa, why am I arguing with this person? That's completely irrelevant. There's something else trying to feed that negativity into my body. So I'm just going to clear it out. I just say, get out, just go. And I pattern interrupt and I come back to something positive. What's something positive that I can name in my day? Well, I'm about to do this workshop with my friend that I love, and we get to share our experiences with others here today of what's worked for us, and maybe what's not working for us yet. Maybe we can kind of touch on that before we sign off, because I would say one of the biggest things that we are coming up against is that we do probably overthink things too much sometimes. Instead of just like maybe meditating on it and just allowing the information to come to us from our body, from our soul, from the universe. We create maybe sometimes some overthinking, and overthinking is always just going to create more overthinking, right?
One quick physical thing that I just wanted to tack on to the whole mental health thing is that we have to remember that our gut is our second brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that ties into like, eating the most healthiest thing that we can feed our body and not putting all of these like toxic chemicals and poisons and preservatives in. That ties into trusting our intuition. And when we fix our gut, we're more tightly entwined with our intuition and, just feeling better mentally.
So true. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's definitely been that was a huge awakener for me too, was that we have this coherence between our mind, our heart, and our gut. And they're communicating with each other. And so if we're creating a sick gut, then yeah, we're creating a sick mind, right? Where the mind is unhealthy. And, if our heart is blocked and it's heavy because we have all this unhealed trauma and wounds and pain, then that also creates an unhealthy mind because it's feeding us into the victim mentality, right? Of I've been through this. And so many times we end up identifying so strongly with our story. This used to be me, and it was making me sick, about all the trauma and all the stuff I had been through. This is just the way I am because I've been through this. And oh, poor me, woo me, right? But it's another way that we give our power away to our circumstances. And it's another way that we give our power away to our healing. And so when we take back our power, and everything that we've talked about today is that you're literally taking control back of your body, your mind, and your soul by honoring yourself, by giving yourself those healthy foods, by discontinuing putting unhealthy thoughts and music and TV shows and all the things that are making you sick, right? You're honoring yourself in that way. It is like the highest form of self love, taking care of yourself in that way. And again, self love is more than just bubble baths and massages, right? It's honoring your emotions, it's honoring your positive traits and your negative traits. And one of the biggest things that Spirit always reminds me is that the things that you're not good at doesn't mean that you're not worthy of. You are not good at something because you came here to learn how to become good at that. So I hope that that lands because that's a really powerful statement that really changed my life. And I realized that I'm not good at certain things, but doesn't mean that I can't be. I just have to learn it because I don't know everything. But I can learn enough that I need to know to be my best version of self. And that means being free from all of my mental health disease and all of my I don't know if endometriosis is called autoimmune disease or not. I think it's more like the beginning stages of like inflammation or something like that. To be honest, I don't really fully know because there's not really a whole lot of like research on it yet. They're kind of still trying to figure out what endometriosis and adenomyosis is.
Yeah,
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to add there on that?
I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I realized about like half an hour into our little speech here, our little workshop, that the privacy settings were turned off, which I did not do. So I don't know why it was like that, but I turned on about halfway through. So for those that could join live, thank you. Um, if you'd like to watch the replay, it will obviously be on here. We're gonna have this on my YouTube channel as well, which is the omrarayacademy. And if you have any questions at all about any of this from either one of us. Trina's done extensive research and in detoxing and parasite cleanses and all those sort of things. She is always teaching me about the herbs and all the things that I need to know about that. So, feel free, especially if you have diabetes or you are struggling from anything along those lines of anything that we spoke of, you can reach out to either one of us and we would be happy to provide some, further support or anything really that you need.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, we'll talk later. Thank you for doing this with me, Trina.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.